Welcome to CGTN live stream. This is a special edition of Taking the Pulse of China's economy. And today we zoom in on multinational companies in China. I'm Lily Lu. We'll take a look at foreign businesses in China. During the first 5 months of year 2022, China received $47.68 billion in foreign capital from major foreign funded projects. That number is 40% up from year 2021. So as a bevy of global firms speeding up their business expansion plans in China, does it show an unchanged confidence in the Chinese market and their long-term business prospects in China? How do they plan to ride out the difficulties and uncertainties, and what kind of support they would seek from authorities? Joining me today are Mr. William Yu, President of Honeywell China. Welcome. Mr. Enrico Reisen, Partner, APAC Co-Lead Analytics, Operations and Performance of Kearney. Mr. Luther Khan, KPMG China Deal Strategy Partner, and Mr. Carlo D'Andrea, Vice President of the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So, gentlemen, let's start with this. The COVID recovery in China. Well, we know that China is walking out of the shadow of the recent COVID outbreaks. And Mr. Yu, let me start with you. You're based in Shanghai. Well, the past few months must be pretty challenging for you and your employees. So like many other multinational companies either from the US or European countries, they thrive in China, they get stronger in China despite of all the headwinds that they faced over the past decades. So what did you and your company do to come up with solutions to cope with the COVID restrictions and to continue to grow and thrive? Mr. Yu?
Okay, thank you. So for Honeywell China, COVID-19 does not have a big impact on our business in China, mainly because of 3 or 4 reasons. The first reason is many years ago, we introduced a policy or a strategy called the local for local or East for East. So this means the products, the offering we deliver to China, not only manufactured in China, sourced in China, but also developed in China. Second is we have a very strong supply base here in China. They meet our requirement no matter what happened in the market, what happened in COVID-19. The third reason is we follow the growth. Within the last few years, we find out there are several very good opportunities in the vertical markets, like the energy, like sustainability, like digitalization, like life science, and also emerging mass market. So we grow after these opportunities.
And let me go to Mr. Reisen from Kearney. So China is jump-starting an economic recovery now with policy support being rolled out nationwide. What Kearney China plans to make out of this recovery momentum?
Yeah, look, China at the moment is certainly recovering very strongly. As you mentioned, there's significant foreign capital. But, you know, firstly, we're going to be looking after our people. I mean, that, you know, certainly out of Shanghai, we've been dealing with that in the first instance. And then as that starts to subside, we're really refocusing on our clients. 70% of our clients are actually domestic in China, and really helping them sort of really recover and start to get their operations and their supply chains in particular, making their supply chains more resilient as time goes forward.
Mr. Khan from KPMG, I wonder, what about the slew of supporting policies that's been introduced nationwide in the past few weeks? Are they truly helpful to businesses, especially to foreign businesses? What are you hearing from your clients?
Yeah, definitely. Those policy and the incentive do help the client, our client, to cover from the COVID lockdown, and also especially the supply chain risks. I think most of our clients still see positive growth in the second half of the 2022, and especially from the industrial manufacturing, from the new vehicle, new energy vehicle, high-end technology, and also from the utility and the mining perspective. Those kind of sectors quite have the strong growth momentum.
And I wonder, Mr. D'Andrea, what are you hearing from your fellow European businessmen? What kind of support do you think that they need the most at this moment to recover from the COVID disruptions?
So I'm really happy to hear the optimism in the room today, because we still need to see the result of Q2 2022, which was especially for companies based in Shanghai for over 2 months and a half of a full lockdown. We'll see which effect will have on China performance, but as well in global performance. As a chamber, we publish our business confidence survey early this last month in June, and we have seen that our members, they see China as an important market, 1.4 billion people. There is not a second China. So they are here because it's one of the most important economy of the world. Indeed, the problem that we are seeing now, that beside that usual suspects, such as equal treatment, market access barrier, now we are facing this the problem of predictability of the Chinese market, because we are not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. Look regarding what's happened in Shanghai. We were expecting for 4 days of lockdown. Instead, our production company, they were closed for many days. It's important in order to create a new confidence in the market. And indeed, this is something that we are looking forward in the months to come.
Yeah, to restore confidence is really the most important thing at the moment. I agree with you. Now, I think that every crisis comes with opportunities. So, Mr. Risen, for your clients, I mean, I know that Kearney works with many manufacturers. For manufacturers with long supply chains, like automaking, would it take longer for them to fully recover to their pre-pandemic level? And what advices is Kearney offering to them?
Yeah, it's look, we ran a survey on both demand and supply and the confidence on both, and it was the auto sector that sort of had less optimistic views from both demand and the supply side. So yes, we do expect it to take a little longer. The chip situation is improving, but it's certainly not resolved. And it will continue to persist, and I think that will continue to lengthen the recovery for many of the auto supply chains in particular. So what is Kearney doing? Really, Kearney's, again, to my earlier point, we focus a lot on the operations space. We're really helping clients to identify some of their pain points, some of their risks a little earlier, so that they can be a bit more proactive with their strategies, sort of, being prepared. And in being prepared, we believe that their supply chains become a little more resilient, and through that resiliency, hopefully they can accelerate the recovery, or at least lessen some of the impacts of yes, COVID, but also some of the inflationary environments that we're now starting to see. So that's really where we're focusing at the moment.
Mm-hmm. That is to be more proactive in reacting to challenges. And let me go to Mr. Khan. Right. And let me go to Mr. Khan from KPMG. What is your advice to businesses on how to make supply chain strategies more resilient given the current circumstances?
Yeah, I think supply chain risk do come in the one of the biggest challenges for company in China due to the COVID situation, and also the supply chain challenge from the global intensified relationships. So most of our clients starting to examine and diagnose their current supply chain risk exposure. They adopt more dual sourcing strategy, which means not over rely on one sole source supply chain. And in the meanwhile, they also starting to look at to have the multiple manufacturing bases to balance the risk, the exposure. So I think control the supply chain risk and also control the supply chain inflation cost are both two important agenda our client is focusing on. And from KPMG, we do offer more and more supply chain diagnosis and cost improvement consulting work for our client to handle and tackle those challenges.
Mr. Yu, so from what Mr. Khan and Mr. Risen told us, I mean, those suggestions and advices, Mr. Yu, do you think these advices would be in any ways valuable to you, to be more proactive to dealing with challenges, either sudden ones or those ones that can be predicted?
Yes, it's very valuable for the points like dual sourcing, not only rely on one single supply for the key components. There's one thing I may want to add is how we as a company to help our major suppliers to improve their process, improve their capabilities so that we could win-win together.
Mm-hmm. Now let me go to Mr. Danger from the EUCCC. So what are you hearing from European businesses here in China? In what ways are they making adjustments exactly? I mean, adopting maybe a more flexible business model or proactive measures being introduced?
Indeed, the smart working is the one we have seen that is happening more and more often in the world post-pandemic. We have seen the instrument like we are having now, this virtual roundtable with people all around the world. And this is definitely a first effect of the COVID pandemic. I want to mention that in our business conference survey, the COVID-19 is one of the top 3 reasons why it's challenging doing business in China. And also our people, they felt that in the past year, doing business in China become more and more political and it become more complicated on doing business in here. What we would like to see now is that China will boost again the path of reform, that it goes a bit stalled during the period of the pandemic. And indeed, we would like to see an easy up of the travel restriction. We have seen a good step. I've been done reduction from 14 days to 7 days on isolation when somebody come back from abroad. But it's important also to increase the number of flights, international flights, because we have to bring back our talents. This is definitely a big challenge that European companies are facing in the market. Many students, they are not the ambassadors of China to come from Europe in China. They are not coming because of the pandemic. So we hope that to see a phase 2 of opening up post-pandemic restriction, because this will boost up also more investment. Because while China is deciding what to do for the COVID-0 policy, the headquarters back in Europe, they are keeping their further investment. And they are deciding if this investment shall arrive to China or shall arrive in other areas around China. And this is something that as a chamber we see as a trend, because, for example, 23% of our members in the survey, double comparing last time, it was 11%, they may decide to exit from China to invest in other markets. So this is something we should have a look at.
Mm-hmm. So hoping that China can jumpstart a second round of recovery from the pandemic, that's exactly what China is trying to do right now. Mr. Yu, China is aiming to improve its industrial power on intelligent manufacturing and industrial digitalization. We would expect companies like Honeywell to continue to make a great contribution to that goal. And among all the innovation and technologies that Honeywell works on here in China, which ones do you think would be the most promising ones to bear fruit beyond market expectations?
Yeah, there's a few things. One is the digitalization. Another piece is related with sustainability. So I talk first about digitalization. More and more companies, they try to introduce technology, leverage big data, connected, cloud, all these AI, try to introduce into their operation and also try to introduce it to serve their customers. Honeywell is very well positioned with our technology to support manufacturing, smart building, smart aviation. So this is the one piece. The second piece is sustainability. In last year, our most senior leaders make an announcement that China will reach carbon neutral, carbon peak in 2030 and carbon neutrality in 2060. This is a big commitment against the climate change. And Honeywell has lots of technologies. We also set up Honeywell China low carbon centers, and we will leverage this platform and use our technologies to understand Chinese customers' requirement and modify technology, and more importantly, develop related technology here in China to serve China.
That is interesting. You're talking about Honeywell launching a low-carbon R&D center in China and to develop technologies in China for China. Does it mean that Honeywell to China to Honeywell, other than being a big market, is now also a source of innovation? How does that change China's role in your global architecture?
Oh yeah, thank you for this question. China is already the second largest market for Honeywell and the biggest growth market in China total portfolio. And in 2003, we set up Asia Pacific headquarters here in Shanghai. And following this, in 2004, we set up the biggest R&D center in Asia Pacific in Shanghai. In 2016, we invest $100 million in Shanghai to expand our headquarters and, more important, to strengthen our R&D centers. In China, we have thousands of R&D engineers, and these talent is very committed, very intelligent, and they work very hard and also resultful. Every year, we launch over 100 new products developed here in China, have the patent in China for Chinese market. But also we take these technologies and offerings not only to serve Chinese customers, but also bring to the rest of the world. So to answer your question, China is already the source of innovation in Honeywell, and China will play a bigger role related with innovation. Not only do the business here, but also innovation here.
That's great insights. And I would like to go to Mr. Risen now. For Kearney, you talked about how 70% of Kearney China's business is actually contributed by Chinese domestic clients. What does this tell us about the country's business dynamics over the past decades, how it has evolved?
Well, there's a number of points to make here. So what we've observed, and these are well-reported figures, China has become a consumption economy, right? It's gone from being a largely export economy. It now has an internal consumption of 1.4 trillion, up 17 times from, I think 2006. And with that, the companies, I think as Mr. Yu has said from Honeywell, it's an East for East strategy. So again, we're looking to our local clients, helping them actually re-engineer their products. In fact, Kearney has an offering called Pearl Labs, which is product excellence re-engineered. And we have one in the US, and we opened our second office in Shanghai to serve our local customers. And again, as Mr. Yu has said, it's a source of innovation for our local Chinese clients to help them rethink and actually improve their products. So innovation is certainly at the top of the agenda for our clients and helping them sort of move forward in that sense, not just for the export economy, but actually to make better products for the local Chinese economy, which is now very significant. As a country, it now represents 18% of global GDP. So, it's not an economy that one can ignore. Final point, just the scale in China now, both from, world-class universities, the students coming out, which is, again, a source of talent for us. And that world-class talent is really helping drive the innovation in another level simply because of its scale and its quality.
So in a nutshell, if you're trying to convince a new client to start their investment here in China, what would you say is the biggest attraction of the Chinese market?
The size of the Chinese market is certainly not something anyone can ignore.
Right. Okay. We're going to come back to that a little later. In the meantime, let me go to Mr. Kang from KPMG. So in your recent report, you said that the growth driver in the Chinese economy will be shifting from external to internal. Can you elaborate more on this, please? And how can foreign businesses better seize these opportunities?
Yeah, I think in the past 2 decades, China do grow, becoming the biggest growth engine in the global economy, and especially based on the external, which means more export oriented and also heavy investment driven economy. And what we see in the future, it's more a balanced way or more grow by the internal factor, including the biggest factor from the domestic consumption and also the industrial production investment. Those are two the important factors while driving the future growth from the internal perspective. And we see the positive sentiment, especially for the industrial production investment in the first half of 2022, although facing the COVID challenge. But still, the investment amount in the industrial production is growing in a speed way. And it's also driven by the technology innovation, and also Chinese enterprise want to move up a value chain through those investment. And also for the domestic consumption, it have more longer term beneficial compared with purely investment on the infrastructure. That also will need more strong measure from the physical and the monetary from the government to incentive the domestic consumer to spend more due to under the current COVID situation. So that's the KPMG view, which we mean it's more rely on the internal growth driver. Yeah.
And how can foreign companies take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think foreign company can play a more big role, especially on the industrial manufacturing area. For example, the high tech, the new energy vehicle, the equipment manufacturing. Those are more technology-driven area. Chinese enterprise want to move up a value chain. They create more and more, not only for the biggest demand market for multinational products, but also for technology alliance and joint venture to tackle more business opportunity in China. And also in the retail front, the consumption upgrade from the domestic householder will also give more multinational retailer and consumer goods company the business opportunity to diversify their business and optimize their current portfolio in China as well.
And Mr. D'Andrea, so the key findings from your latest China Business Confidence Survey is high risks and high rewards. I think you touched upon that just now. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, please? Because I know that that survey was based on the findings or the feedbacks that you got from your respondents last year. What about this year? If you've done a survey now, how do you think that result would be different?
Indeed, would be different because we did all the survey. The time was February when you had a strong start of the year, and the Business Confidence Survey is the publication that we do every year in order to check the temperature on the market. Now, following the Business Confidence Survey, we did other internal review and flash survey in order to understand which one is the state of art for our members. What is at the moment the main challenge is attract talent, restart the business, because it seems that in Shanghai, not all the company start fully. Remember that in April, over 330 million Chinese and citizens, they were in a status of lockdown, which it seems like all the population of the 27 state member in Europe. China is indeed the second economy of the world, is keeping pushing in order to become the first economy of the world, but we need more predictability, because it's what the European headquarters at the moment wants. Because if we have to put money in this market, we need to understand if we can operate or not. We need to have more transparency in the new regulation in order to understand better what's going to happen tomorrow. And another point is that I want to emphasize is the support to the small, medium enterprises, because the multinational company that are here represented by Honeywell, they have the body sides and the pocket in order to overcome the difficulties. But the small, medium enterprise at the moment are the ones that suffered the most of the pandemic and the related lockdown, especially because sometimes the general manager is not only the general manager, but it's also the HR, the finance, and so on. And if you have a problem in making him come back to China, this company may also decide to close. So in a policy of support, we have to focus the authorities in help this small, medium enterprise to grow, to foster, because the R&D, what as the colleagues of Honeywell will say, is really important. In our business confidence survey, over 40% of our members believes that China is more innovative compared to the other peer global status. But indeed, the challenges on the IPR protection are still there. The legal framework, they are getting improved, but the enforcement of the protection on IPR still need to be reassured at international level. So these more or less are the state of art.
Now, these issues that you just talked about, how for small and medium-sized, especially micro businesses, to recover from the pandemic disruptions and the IPR issues and other issues, despite if we look past the past 3 months from the pandemic disruptions, how would you comment on the evolution and the change, improvement in China's business environment over the years? What are you hearing from your fellow European businesses?
I see that they are feeling uncertainty. They don't know how it's going to be Q3. We will have a new wave of COVID-19, and therefore we have a new wave of lockdown. There are a lot of uncertainty regarding the international school, because many of teachers, they went abroad and we don't know if they come back. There are some rumors that some important international school in Beijing and Shanghai may even not reopen because the exodus of expats happening in this summer. And, you know, after 3 years, if you see the COVID-0 policy, it worked. And you have seen that China over the past years was one of the only countries still open, while Europe and US were closed. But now we see other way around. You see China locked, and you can see Europe and US fully reopened, taking away all the limitation related the distance, the mask. And this is an attraction for expats to move in other markets. For example, there are many of our members, they think to relocate their regional headquarters in Singapore or in other area around China. And this is something that the authorities should look into it, because it's complicated after let's expat come back when the confidence and the uncertainty is still there, and the confidence instead is not going back. And this personally, I believe that is something we should look into it, because in order to attract again new investment, we need to have more transparency and more support for the international and European company in China.
So you need more policy support, especially for smaller businesses from Europe, to restore business confidence in China. We hear that. And China wants to restart its economic activities now, a post-pandemic, let's call it a second round of rebound. China wants economic growth, also wants quality growth. And as Mr. Yu mentioned, China will stick with its dual carbon goals. And I wonder, Mr. Khan, for KPMG China, how do you think your company's strategy would fit into China's dual carbon goals and digitalization process?
Yeah, I think those two measures is also the quite important growth imperative for KPMG China to capture the business opportunity in China. And firstly is related to ESG agenda. In last year, we unveiled our impact plan to drive the sustainable change for our organization. We want to have our organization and our culture and our employee more involving and more sustainable to the community and public. And we also committed $1.5 billion multi-year program towards confronting the ESG challenge facing by our client. So in China, we also see the increasing attention on ESG, especially both from the PE investor, but also the corporate, including the Chinese enterprise, driven by the China 2013 and 2016 goals. It calls strong needs for a more integrated ESG solution. So KPMG actually building up the ESG into 6 pillars, covering the ESG assurance reporting, ESG investment, and also decarbonization and sustainable supply chain. That's for the sustainability agenda or ESG agenda. Second also is related to the digitalization. In China, we also see more and more challenge from the cost pressure, from the raw material price inflation, energy price, supply chain uncertainty, and also the labor cost, which eventually impact the business profitability and the sustainability. And our client also need a more agile and efficient operating model to adapt those ever-evolving environment and keep the competitiveness. So digital transformation will play an important role to achieve the lean and agile operating model and also operation efficiency. And we also build up a strong ambition for the digital transformation, not only by ourselves, but also partner with our local China digital ecosystem, including the leading domestic tech company, to joint co-solution the digital transformation solution, and also injunction our KPMG sector insight to provide those services to our client. So I think both two topics is quite important for China, for our client, and also for our growth business in China.
Well, it also seems to me that ESG and digitalization, they can somehow interact with each other, with digitalization, help with the ESG process and ESG propelling companies to find digital solutions. And let me go to, speaking of sustainability, I should go to Mr. Yu, because Honeywell is a high-tech enterprise that has been rooted in China for many years. What opportunities does Honeywell see in China's prospects, especially in energy conservation and low carbon development?
Yes, for this energy and low carbon, Honeywell do see this is a huge opportunities when I spend and my colleagues spend more time with different kinds of customers, we see the strong demand and request. And Honeywell is very well positioned as a leading technology companies to offer the solutions to our customer. For instance, smart logistic and intelligent warehouse solutions. Because when people have more money and they need to spend more money on the retail, so all this is grows very fast. But at the same time, our customer looking for the smart and energy efficient solutions. So recently we signed a framework agreement with a company called Bestore Liangping Puzi, a high-end snack brand in China. and we give them solutions to help them intelligent upgrade of their warehouse so that they could further increase efficiency in logistics and also the warehouse. Now, so this is the one case. Now, the second case is smart aviation solutions. So recently, we have less people travel because of COVID-19, but we know that the pent-up demand and which will come back sooner or later in China. So Honeywell do very well prepared on several solutions. One is called jet wave satellite communications. And we work with our partners, work with airline companies to bring their high-speed, in-house, in-plane communication to the system. But at the same time, we also have we call the green jet fuel, which is very similar on fused fuel, but made from more sustainable alternatives. It means or exceeds the most rigorous jet standards for performance, and it can be made from a variety of sustainable feedstocks. It can reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 65 to 85%. So this is, as Lily, you just mentioned, how the digital combined with this sustainability. So Honeywell do prepare these solutions based on our customer requirement. Now, there's another very good thing is low global warming potential materials. It's for refrigerant, as Khan just mentioned. Electric vehicles is booming here in China within the last few years. It also will have a much bigger play here in China. So Honeywell do have solutions like environment-friendly refrigerant, which could be used for e-vehicles. At the same time, in fact, last week, I talked with one of the partners in KPMG about introduce our autonomous technologies to e-vehicle manufacturers, because Honeywell do have an aerospace business. So how we could use this technology localized here in China to meet the customer requirements for both growth, and also environmental friendly. So Honeywell as a leading technology companies, we are committed here in China and use our technologies to customize it, to innovate it here in China, for China.
Interesting. An environmental friendly refrigerator. I thought that would be a cold shower outdoors. Let me go to Mr. D'Andrea. So one of the other interesting findings from your business confidence survey is one that says that China has been viewed as a thriving research and development hub by many European businesses. What are the attractions?
Well, first of all, as we were mentioned before, the size of the market, because it's interesting that the 1.4 billion potential consumer. Another point of view is the importance that the innovation, the ecosystem that China are building up on R&D and the subsidies they are providing. As I mentioned in our business conference survey, over 40% that our respondents said that China ecosystem is quite innovative, if not even more, to other related markets. What remain are the challenges for the small medium enterprise, because in order to have a clear protection of your innovation, a clear protection on your new patent, you need important funds. Sometimes the small medium enterprise are a bit resilient in order to bring to China the latest technology, because they are afraid of possible copycat and similar. Indeed, the research and development in China is something important, because our members are in China for the Chinese market. What I want to highlight is, in order to have innovation, you need also interchange of ideas. And it's okay to have a Zoom call or team calls, but it's also important to have international travel. It's important that to have a melting pot of engineers coming from a different part of the world here in China in order to foster innovation. And in fact, we are not surprised that Shenzhen is one of the most innovative cities of China, because it's one of the cities which collect many citizens coming from different parts of China and of the world. So it's important in order to foster innovation to have a solid and valid legal system to protect the IPR and the enforcement of IPR. You need an innovation center in order to allow interchange among headquarters and China R&D based location. And we need universities. China got universities, important universities, but at the moment students cannot travel abroad. So we need open-minded students that they seen as things are done in US, as things are done in Italy or in Germany, and vice versa. We need engineers from Europe that just graduate from top university in Europe to come here in China to see as China-made things are done. So it's important also to think about that, because the restriction that we have at the moment with the COVID-19 zero policy may affect also the future to come innovation of the Chinese company and the European company doing business in China.
And speaking of students, let me go to Mr. Risen. So it's graduation season, so summer recruitment is beginning. What does Kearney expect from China's young talents this year?
Well, we're extremely hopeful that the young talent consider Kearney as a great firm to come and work for. But what do we look for? Clearly, we look for the best students coming out of the excellent universities in China. But equally, we look for other factors in our students. We look for people who are bold, people who are prepared to make recommendations to companies like Mr. Yu's at Honeywell, where they can improve today, but also actually shape the future for tomorrow. They're the sort of students that we need, that can really look at the issues at hand for our clients and really help them solve their problems going forward, so that they can deal with their ESG issues, right, that Mr. Yu spoke to, so that they can actually implement digitalization strategies, which are really quite complex strategies. In fact, you know, we saw during COVID the e-commerce strategies of large retailers, CPGs, accelerate by 3 to 4 or 5 years, right? Where they and in order to do that, we need sort of the smartest and the brightest to really work with our clients to show them how that can be done. So, you know, that's really what we're looking for in students. So people who can communicate, people who are highly analytical, who can really understand complex problems, break them down, identify and develop those solutions, and present them in a bold and confident way to our clients, so that they can be better and more ready for the future tomorrow. And hopefully they see Kearney as a place that, you know, can help them shape that and teach them how to do that.
And
That's
Mr. Risen, yeah, what kind of policy support do you think foreign businesses need to help them to retain talents, especially international talents?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, the great resignation is, I don't think any country is immune to that, whether it's Australia, the US, China, Europe as a continent. So I think, you know, one of the things that we're certainly hearing about from the millennials is a greater need for work-life balance. This is a generation that has grown up really appreciating, I think, more than just sort of, I'm not saying that they don't work hard. In fact, they're very ambitious and they are very diligent, but they want a more balanced life. And so we've been working very hard with our incumbent employees, but equally new recruits, to really help them understand what they want, not just out of work, but what they want out of life. And so as we do that, we're improving our retention significantly in that way. And then equally, you know, when it comes to young people, to the comment made around needing for global interchange, a lot of young people want to travel. In fact, you know, a consultant that I worked with closely when I did a lot of work in China, Shay Lu, she's now based in New York, a senior principal, you know, a great career path. You know, her desire was to travel outside of China, really get that US experience, and that's what we've really afforded to her. And I'm sure everyone on this call has similar stories about, you know, what their young consultants, what their employees really expect from them.
And speaking of young talents, I have to go to Mr. Yu. Mr. Yu, you're heading a leading technology company, so I wanted to get your take. What is your impression on China's local talents, especially young talents, in technological innovation?
Firstly, we are very appreciated that our employees in China are so committed and so intelligent to not only working on the manufacturing, sourcing, but especially on the innovation. So every year we have hundreds of new patents being applied in China from our local Chinese team. 2 months ago, we initiate an innovation campaign based on our strategy here in China. Over 1,000 engineers participate, and they come up over 300 great ideas. Now we're in the process to evaluate which will get the funding from management team. So overall speaking, I'm personally very happy with the intelligence and the commitment and the skill set. So this is also one of the drivers that Honeywell so committed, as a company so committed in China, because we have a great talent here.
Yeah, and I want to go back to Mr. Risen. So let's talk about China's connection with the world economy. So amid complicated global relations, how would you position China in the APEC region's economic spectrum?
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the comments made earlier around, we have our foreign direct investment confidence index, and some of the factors there that are becoming really important as we look as how things have improved in 2022. But the top 3 of the top 5 factors deal with transparency of regulation and government, ease of moving capital into and out of the country, and then the strength of investor and property rights, right, which goes to sort of patents, etc., that we've heard. And what that's really telling us is that when the capital is looking for a home, it's really looking for a home where the risks of losing that capital are less. The transparency to where that capital is invested is clearer, and that there's confidence that they're going to be able to see the return on that capital. Whereas in previous years, things such as tax rates and ease of tax payments dominated the top 5 categories, whereas that's lessened. And I think China's role as it's gone forward, as I said earlier, and again it's been repeated many times, you are a significant consumption economy, and so therefore you are seen by other Asian countries as an export market for them. So they look at China as an opportunity, as does the rest of the world. Further to that, China has been dealing with the impact of the pandemic, and certainly it's been playing a significant role as part of the G20. It's adopted some of the G20 sort of requirements, and it's really helped stabilize growth in the region. And I think, that's been a very important role for China in APAC. It's certainly looking to improve its openness and its stability, and helping sort of, as a supplier of goods and services, stabilize those supply chains. As we heard earlier, sort of dual sourcing is becoming important. China has always been an important source, but equally the investments that China has made in region to, offer other sources of supply from other countries like Vietnam and Thailand is equally helping the global economy. And again, China's certainly introduced new measures, which has helped strengthen the international trade, to those factors that I spoke to earlier, providing greater confidence in the international community, and in APAC more broadly. So the things that it's been doing, has really, I see, helped APAC and therefore helped China's role within APAC.
Thank you. And Mr. Yu, so looking ahead, how is China positioned in Honeywell's future growth target, and how will you make your story available to more industrial and civil sectors in the country?
Honeywell has long been committed to meeting the needs, the requirements of the Chinese market through our local product development and innovation. We are pleased to continue our role as a leading technologies to bring some value and contribute to China high quality and sustainable development. So this is also the reason at the beginning of 2020, we set up a company, an innovation center in Wuhan to serve the mass mid segment. In last year, we set up a company in Xi'an and also innovation center in Xi'an related with our smart building business. And we also invest and set up an innovation company in Tianjin for smart manufacturing, try to leverage our technologies to serve Chinese customers. So we are very committed in China, and also with our core business perfectly aligned with the China market demand, including digitalization, sustainability. We pay very close attention to developing key verticals to continue the investment in growth industries, which enable us to drive indigenous innovation tailored to local customer needs. We also continue to bring technologies and the products developed in China to the rest of the world to implement our strategy called East to East and East to West. A very important takeaway from the test of the pandemics, that is, companies should seek innovation that really work for people, not only for companies, for business, which is important, but they really could have innovation for the people. Innovations that are more affordable, human-centered, and socially sustainable. Honeywell will continue our efforts to provide high-quality innovative solutions for Chinese customers, enabling the realization of China's economic and social objective.
Great insight, thank you. And Mr. Khan, so China is facing challenges not only from the COVID pandemic, but like many other countries in the world, we're faced with complicated global relations, geopolitical tensions, inflation risks, rising commodity prices, even grain securities. So what is KPMG's perspective on China's role in the global economy going forward? And what is your outlook for China's economic growth for the second half of 2022?
Yeah, in terms of the future Chinese role in the global economy, I think in the past, China is the biggest consumption market in most of the sector, and also one of the biggest supply market as well in the same time. In future, I think the value chain upgrade in the industrial manufacturing area will play a more important role for China, which require more openness to multinational company as well. A perfect example is really in the automotive, in the new energy vehicle, that we do open the industrial welcome more competition from the multinational OEMs, which bring the supply chain and also the EV product more advanced compared with other developed countries. So openness is quite important. Second, if I look at the foreign the ODI, the China investment to the overseas market, I also see the big improvement area for China to play more and more. In the past, China export more products manufacturing from China, export to overseas market. But the ODI, the percentage versus the total GDP is relatively low compared with the developed country. Right now, we're roughly at 2 or 3% of the total GDP. But advanced country is at the 8 to 10% from the ODI perspective. So I think not only to export the product, but also invest on those markets, set up the manufacturing supply chain basis in overseas country, let the advanced product to the overseas countries could be another important role for China to play. That's for the Chinese role for the global economy. Regarding on the sentiment or momentum for the second half of this year growth, economic growth, I believe compared with the downward pressure, especially in Q2, I see the second half can be improved in many perspectives. One is from the industrial production investment perspective. As I mentioned before, we see more investment on that area. And also we see the advanced policy in place in the infrastructure investment as well that will incentive the domestic economy as well. From the retail perspective, we still see a moderate growth, which need more measures from the government to incentive the local consumer to spend more rather than saving more under the current soft economy. So I think the biggest factor will impact the second half is really on the investment and also on the consumption area.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. And my final question to all of you, let's start with Mr. D'Andrea. Is the China market still attractive for European businesses? Why? And how can we keep this attractiveness?
China is indeed attractive for European companies. The uncertainty erode a bit the confidence of headquarters in the market. And you can see that also in geopolitical position, the fact that China didn't take a clear stand against the Russia-Ukraine war, this also affects a bit the pressure on headquarters back in Europe. China needs to continue the path of reform, should have a clear roadmap, should speed it up, the opening up of the market restricted sector, and indeed should have a better policy related the travel restriction that shall wind up and shall increase the number of international flights. In this way, European company will continue to invest in this market. But as I mentioned, our companies at the moment are in China for the Chinese market.
Great. And also let's go to Mr. Risen. So what is the biggest attraction of the China market to Kearney?
I think the growth of the domestic economy and the growth of companies in China, manufacturing for China, continue to be highly attractive for us as a business. But then further, as we service our international clients, the MNCs, as they seek to come into China, I've certainly been dealing with a company here in Australia that's looking to grow in China. Again, those growth strategies looking to serve and the Chinese consumer and provide inputs for Chinese companies maintains its attractiveness. And then, as I said earlier, those factors around sort of transparency, regulation, a certainty of sort of capital flows in and out, the strength of investor property rights, mean that foreign direct investment will continue to pour into China. And with that, that's an opportunity for us as a firm to provide advice to both the MNCs and the local companies.
And Mr. Kang for KPMG.
Yeah, we also see tremendous needs from our client for support from the professional firm for sustainable growth in China, not only for MNC, but also the Chinese enterprise. So we do have strong momentum for our Chinese business growth, which already see in the first half, we achieve double-digit growth still under the challenging environment. So we still plan to expand further, expand our office network and also local talent acquisition in the next 3 years as well.
And finally, what is most attractive about China to Honeywell, Mr. Yu?
Yeah, so with all these challenges and uncertainties, China is still very attractive to Honeywell, and we are confident in China. So why we are confident? Why China is attractive? At least a few reasons. One is the size of the opportunity, the size of the market here in China. Second is the industrialization here in China. There's so many opportunities, so many availability for different kinds of material, components, and the product. So this really help us to source the parts, source the product here in China. The third reason is the talent. The source of the talent. Every year, 10 million people graduate from universities. This is no any country has so many qualified talent, and not only the numbers but also the quality. Now, what we should do, and we should do continuously, first is improve ourselves, close to customer, listen to the customer what they really need, and select the industrial and the area to focus. Because in China is huge. Honeywell is a big company, but we could not make every customer happy. But we definitely could select some industries, some opportunities. For instance, digitalization, sustainability, life science, petrochemical, buildings. All these industries has a huge demand, and they also want to upgrade. Now, the third thing is ecosystems. How we work not only with our customers, serve our customers, but also our partners, which including our suppliers, local government, industrial associations, also like consulting companies, Kearney and also KPMG. How we work together to serve our customers. Huge opportunity.
Great. So in a nutshell, gentlemen, as you mentioned, the market size, a big market, as Mr. Dendre had emphasized in several occasions here. Other than that, Mr. Yu talked about how this talent pool is huge, and also China's technological innovation ability, as well as customer demand is getting strong. All that and a lot more will be forming China's continued attractiveness for foreign businesses in the years to come. Now, gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's bear in mind that the Chinese government has vowed to keep ramping up support for major projects invested by foreign companies and help to address difficulties that they face. So thank you so much for your time today. Again, that were Mr. William Yu, President of Honeywell China, Mr. Enrico Risen, Partner of Kearney, Mr. Luther Khan, KPMG China Partner, and Mr. Carlo Dendria, Vice President of the EUCCC. And also a big thank you goes out to our audience. I hope it's been a productive and inspiring session. And with that, I'm wrapping up this special edition. And please stay tuned for more to come here on CGTN. I'm Lily Lu. Bye for now.